I am going to make a coat for a doll using fabric, buttons, a needle and thread, or a sewing machine. I start by folding over a piece of fabric, creating a fold along the top. Using a doll as a guide, cut a large rectangle with the doll's arms stretched out. With the doll's head just above the fold, make a small mark under the arm. And I made my mark a little bit away from the body because it's easier to size down than it is to size up. Repeat on the other side. Using a ruler, I lightly sketch from the mark to the end of the material. Draw another line going down. Repeat on the other side, making a shape that looks like the letter T. Cut around it, leaving a little extra for a seam allowance. Draw a line down the center. Cut on the line drawn, being careful not to cut the bottom layer. Stop at the fold, then make 2 small angled cuts at the neck. Trim it from the back at a slight curve. Cut another rectangle of fabric that extends beyond the top of the coat. Stitch around the edges to prevent them from fraying. If using a sewing machine, I would go around the edges with a zigzag stitch. Open the coat to lay it flat. Place the rectangle on top, lining up the bottom edge. Flip it over, making sure to keep everything in place. Pins can be used to hold them together. Starting at the bottom, I am going to sew a straight line all the way around the edge, using a needle and thread or a sewing machine. Once sewn, cut up the center to separate the sides. Make small cuts around the curve of the neck. Flip the material over the edge, then iron it flat to keep it neat. I take the opening for the neck, stretch it out, take a measurement for the collar, which in my case looks like about 3 inches. Then I'm going to add another ½ inch for a seam allowance. Fold over a piece of fabric and cut at the measurement. Sew down the sides and across the bottom, stopping in the middle, so it can be flipped inside out, just like a pillow. Use a needle and thread to close the opening. I take the collar and sew it to the edge of the neckline. Using a needle and thread, I go between the layers to come up through the seam. Then push the needle through a tiny bit on the edge and go back down and just work my way across back and forth, sewing it right at the edge until the collar is fully attached. Then lay out the coat with the good side facing up. Cut a rectangle of fabric, fold it in half, line up the raw edges with the end of the sleeve. Sew a straight line across and finish it with a zigzag stitch. Then straighten out the material to reveal a clean edge. Repeat for the other sleeve. Fold it over so the good side is on the inside and line up the edges. Sew a straight line from the edge of the sleeve all the way down the side. Try it on the doll for size. Now's the time to make adjustments where needed. Trim off the excess, making small cuts in the corners to release the tension. Hem the bottom. I chose to continue the hem going all the way around, up the sides around the edge of the collar and then back down to make the edges lay flat. Turn the coat right side out, flip over the collar and lapel, iron flat to make a simple coat. Sew on rectangles of fabric, only on 3 sides, leaving the top open to make pockets for a lab coat. Make it a different color and add a long strip of fabric for a belt to make a trench coat. We even added small strips on the sides for belt loops. If the dolls need more room around the midsection, I cut the sides at an angle. Sew on small buttons for added detail to make a designer coat. I can change the neckline for a softer look. Cut a rectangle of fabric, fold it in half, making sure it can fit around the doll's head. Sew a straight line along the raw edges, leaving an opening in the middle so it can be flipped inside out. Stitch the opening closed. Once sewn, fold it over, stitch up the side opposite of the fold to make a hood. Sew it onto the neckline just like the collar to make a raincoat. Have fun altering this design to make a coat for any occasion. And you're done.
Happy crafting!
Wow, you made a lab coat, a trench coat, a designer coat? Loving the designer coat. And a raincoat? But can you make it easier? Make an easier coat using felt. Fold it, cut it, sew up the sides, cut the center, the neckline, flip it, cut out a collar, sew it inside the neckline, flip the collar over the edge, add a little style, and you're done.
We want to give a shout out to Cute AG Dolls. What's up?
I've done it! I finally done it!
Sophie, what is it? What have you done?
I've created a time machine.
A time machine? Where?
Well, you know how there's always that big red button you're never supposed to push? I might have pushed it, and it went into the future without me. But don't worry, I can build it again. I have my notes. Note to self, don't push big red button.